I wanted to make a quick video to show you how to access the lab environment for this course. So there's two ways really to get into the network. The official correct way to do it is to download the Cisco VPN client and connect your VPN, the Cisco VPN, and then you can RDP directly into the lab environment. But I wanted to show you an alternate way that works for me sometimes. Sometimes I can't get the Cisco VPN to work on my laptop, so what always works for me is tunneling in with SSH to the lab environment. So to do that, you first have to make sure your Dunks1 account is configured. If you've never used Dunks1 at Drexel, Dunks1 is the academic Unix server. It's a Solaris server at Drexel that you can connect to with Putty. So, but before you can use it, you have to activate your account. So you have to go to this website, drexel.edu/IRT. I usually just get to it by doing a Google search for Dunks1 or Drexel Dunks1. And I end up here, but what I'm always looking for is, with students, is the Computer Accounts Management Service, or CAMS. So once you find this CAMS link, you click on CAMS, and you'll log in to CAMS. So for example, I'm going to log in. So once you log into CAMS, you'll be able to activate your academic Unix account. So you just go in here and you can turn it on. You can add it to your, so you'll have a button you can use to activate academic Unix, and then you can click a couple buttons so to do that. But once you activate your account, one thing it's going to ask you is what shell you want. So the shell that you want, or that most students want, is the bash shell. So I usually recommend using the bash shell. At some point it's going to ask you what shell. Just choose the bash shell. So once you get that configured, so once you set up the access, the next thing you're going to do is download and install. Well, you don't really have to install. You just download a program called Putty. It's a pretty simple little application, but when you download it, it's going to look like this. I'll start you from scratch. I already have mine set up, but let me show you from scratch how to do this. So I'm going to cancel this and open it up again. So here's my Putty configuration. So I'm going to give it the host name, which is dunks1.irt.drexel.edu. We're going to use SSH to connect to it, and I'm going to call it Dunks1, and I'm going to put an underscore on mine because I already have a Dunks1 in my list, so I got to differentiate it. So I'm going to save that. So now I have my Dunks1 connection set up. Here it is right here. The other thing I'm going to do is go into Tunnels SSH, and I'm going to create a tunnel. So my source port, I'm going to make 33320, just something that's easy to remember. I'm using 33320 because the port for RDP is 3389, and our course number is 320. So I'm just going to combine those, so it's 33320. It really doesn't matter what source port you use. It just has to be something that's not used by another application on your computer. So if you pick something well over 1,000, chances are it's not going to overlap with anything. I'm pretty sure 33320 is not going to overlap with anything on my computer. The destination is the VLab. So ours is ct320.goodwin.drexel.edu. And then I have to tell it what port to connect. RDP, which is what we're going to use to connect. So remote desktop protocol uses port 3389. So I put a colon and then port 3389. So what's going to happen here, so let me hit add. What this is going to do is any device or anyone that sends traffic to the local host, to my machine, so when I send traffic to my machine, Putty is going to bind to this port number, 33320, and it's going to redirect that traffic to ct320.goodwin.drexel.edu on port 3389 on the Drexel network. So it's going to basically proxy port 33320 on my machine out to Drexel on port 3389. So once I get this in here, I'm going to go back here and save it. So now I have it. Then I'm going to open the connection. You can open the connection by clicking open down here, or you can always just double click and it'll open the connection. So when you open the connection, you log in with your Drexel account. Oh, whoops. I put the wrong password in the first time. So once you connect, you're in the in your shell. If you took a Linux class or a Unix class, you'll probably know a few things about how to use the shell, but this is just a standard Unix shell. I can type pwd and it shows me my home directory, and ls shows me all the directories in my current directory and so forth. So just like any other Linux shell, if any of you are familiar with that. But I'm really not going to use this at all. This is just here to tunnel the traffic. It just kind of sits in the background. I can minimize it now if I wanted to. So at this point, if I open up remote desktop connections, so I'm going to go to remote desktop. Let me drag it over for you. So I'm going to put 127.0.0.1, and my port number was 33320. So this should redirect me to the Drexel Virtual Lab. Here we go. So now it's asking me to log in. So I'm going to put my Drexel credentials. Our lab environment uses our Drexel credentials, so you just use your Drexel credentials to log in. So I am now connecting. So once you're in here, once you're in the Drexel RDP session, when you get to the lab RDP, from here, you're going to access VMware to get into your virtual machine. So every student in this course has a virtual machine. You're going to double click on the VMware client, and then you got to wait for this thing. Now, for some reason, for me, whenever I load this, it usually fails the first time, and then it works the second time. I'm really not sure why. Well, it'll work the first time this time, but if it ever fails, you can always just click it again. So once you connect in here, and by the way, this is what you're going to see sometimes. You might see this the first time you connect. If you see this screen, you're going to want to go to up here at the top. So you can click some options here. I'm going to click Hosts and Clusters. When I go into Hosts and Clusters, I get this tree down the left-hand side. Now, I can see all the student VMs. You're probably only going to see your own VMs. But when I find my own VM, so let me find my name in here. I am BCG28. Here's me. So I have a Windows machine and I have a Linux machine. So I'm going to start my Windows machine. So I highlighted the Windows machine. I'm going to click the play button. So it's starting up that machine. If I want to look at the console, I have two options. I can click this little console button. It'll show me the VM console, so you can see here that Windows is starting. It's already installed, so it's just going to start it up. Or you can break it out. So if you click this little button at the top, you can break out the window, and you can view your console like this, which I think is a little bit easier. And I'll usually turn this one off and minimize it, so I'll leave this up. Okay, so your virtual machine is not set up yet, so you're going to go through. This is something that you want to get done at the very latest this week, for sure, if you haven't done it already. But you're going to go in here, and just like any other Windows installer, you're going to go through the installer to install the OS, to install Windows 2008 Server. So I'll walk you through that right now. All right, so I'm going to do standard full installation. I'm going to accept the license agreement. This is, well, I don't think it's really an upgrade. We're going to do a new copy of Windows, which is fine. So 20 gigabytes is fine. That's how big our virtual disks are. It's the size of the disk they give us. So once you get to this screen, this is going to take a while, although it's a little bit faster because it's a VM, and it's only a 20 gig drive, and so this should take a few minutes. Okay, so we're almost done. All right, and by the way, your mouse sometimes is a little wonky in these virtual machines through RDP. So I have to change the password. So I'm going to click OK and put the administrator password. Now this is very important that you make sure you put a password in here that you're going to remember. The standard one that we usually use is capital P9SSW0RD. That's a standard training password that we use. So P9SSW0RD. So you can feel free to use that, but if there's something else that you normally use that you're not going to forget, you can use that. But whatever you set it to, make sure you write it down. And if it's not capital P9SSW0RD, I will not know what your password is. I always have students that email me and say, Brian, I don't know what my password is. And I'll say, well, try capital P9SSW0RD. And they say, well, that didn't work. What is it? And I say, I don't know, because that's the only one that I recommend. So if you don't use mine, I will not know what your password is. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. My password has been set. All right, so we're almost done. It's going to log me in. There's only one other step that isn't required, but I kind of recommend it. You can install the VMware tools. The only reason I recommend installing the VMware tools is it'll make your mouse a little bit easier. So to install the VMware tools, depending on the version of VMware, I don't know if this one's going to have it, but there we go. So if you go into VM, Guest, Install or Upgrade VMware Tools, click on that. So it should mount a CD-ROM drive in your VM, which will load the VMware Tools installer. Let me close this window. So I'm going to open up File Explorer. There we go. So I'm going to run the VMware Tools installer. And you'll see too when you do this that VMware, or your control of the machine through RDP is going to be much better if you install the VM tools. Otherwise, it's kind of weird. Your mouse moves around a lot. It's hard to control it. You'll drive yourself crazy with some of the labs trying to type things in or trying to click on buttons and things. So let's see. We're going to let this run. And I keep losing my mouse. There we go. You can see it's really hard to control the mouse until you install this. So this installs a video driver for VMware and installs a new mouse, I think, and keyboard and things like that. So all this stuff will work a little bit better. All right, we're almost done. So you can see that this whole process is not very long. It just takes a few minutes to get set up. And then once you do this, you'll be ready for the rest of the semester with your lab environment. We are not going to need the Linux machines. So they gave us Linux virtual machines, but you're not going to need those for this class. But by all means, if you want to use it for something, you certainly could. But like I said, we're not going to need it in this course. So once the VMware installer is done, it's going to do a reboot. So I'm going to click Finish. It's going to ask if I want to restart. I'm going to say yes. So now we wait for a restart. All right, and we're back. You can see the screen's a little bigger now. Now, I'm not going to hit Control-Delete on my keyboard. Instead, I'm going to go up here, and there should be an option to send Control-Alt-Delete under Guest. So I'm going to do that instead. Although Control-Delete will work on your keyboard, but it will send Control-Delete for everything. So your computer will get Control-Delete, the RDP session will get it, and then the VM. So it's better if you do it from the VM console. So my password is P9SSW0RD. All right, we're logging in, and I'm back. And the mouse is definitely a lot better now. Now it's a lot smoother for me to click on things. It's a lot better than it was, for sure. So from this point, you'd be ready to start doing the labs. So you would walk through the instructions for the activities from the textbook, and you would be turning in screenshots. What I do recommend for your screenshots is I always recommend students go into Notepad and type your name, like so. This way, all of your screenshots will be watermarked with your name, because what happens sometimes is students will take other students' screenshots, and if your screenshot looks just like somebody else's screenshot, there's really no way to prove that you're not the one that created it. But if you put your name on it, you won't find people taking your screenshot and taking credit for your work. So I always recommend including a Notepad window somewhere kind of out of the way that shows your name on the screenshot. And sometimes what I'll even do is ask students to put the lab number. So I might say this is activity 1-4 or something like that. That way you'll remember which activity it was. So that's definitely a good idea. So if you have any questions with the lab environment, let me know. This should work for you. Like I said, you can use the Cisco VPN and connect that way. That's the official correct way to do it. If you can't use the Cisco VPN, maybe you have a Mac and you can't connect it that way, you can use Putty to do it instead, or you can use SSH. And by the way, SSH works in Mac as well. It's a little bit different because it's not Putty, but you can certainly find instructions. The concept is exactly the same and the configuration is exactly the same. But so you can connect with Putty using Dunks1. Once you get in, you're going to install your VM, and then you'll be good to go after you set up your VM tools. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Good luck.